70 years ago, the United States was pulled into World War II. And if you would read the fine summary that Sylvia Forrest in the book Granville Went to War, you would have had an idea of the events that led to our entry and fighting with the Axis powers of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Americans have been well versed in fighting for freedom, liberty, and our way of life. In 1776, we declared our independence from England for the sake of our liberty and for the sake of our way of life. In World War I, once called the Great War, also known as the War to End All Wars, President Wilson declared that it was our duty to fight to make the world safe for democracy. And making the world safe for democracy, safe for our liberty, safe for our way of life, is most certainly true, most definitely the case with our involvement in World War II. The Axis powers were moving to dominate all of Europe, North Africa, Macedonia, and most, if not all, of Asia. They believed themselves to be racially, morally, and intellectually superior, and were forcing their ways of fascism and imperial domination over other nations and whole peoples by brute force, by extermination, and by genocide. The freedom of the world was at stake. And after Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, and after Hitler's declaration of war against us on December 11th, Americans, you Americans, had to act. And act you did, with a courage that was tenacious and determined and fearful only of failure. If you had failed, then the light of civilization might well have been extinguished. We know this now. Listen to the words of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a prayer he led on the radio to the nation on the evening of June 6, 1944, D-Day. Almighty God, our sons, the pride of our nation, this day have set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give them strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. And for us at home, fathers, mothers, children, wives, sisters, and brothers of our brave men overseas, help us, Almighty God, to rededicate ourselves in renewed faith in Thee, in this, our great hour of sacrifice. Give us faith in Thee, faith in our sons, faith in each other, faith in our united crusade, and with Thy blessing, we shall prevail over the unholy forces of our enemy. A crusade against the unholy forces of our enemy. Well, we did prevail. You prevailed. And with great courage, bravery, honor, and sacrifice. 400,000 American soldiers died in World War II. 11 of them came from right here in Graniteville. 11 years ago, the Graniteville Veterans Foundation dedicated this granite memorial to those who served in World War II to keep their stories alive. A small community who served their country in its darkest hour and did so bravely, without fanfare, without asking for anything in return. It is indeed fitting that these names behind me and the names of the hot sketches to the right of me be there, etched in granite, so that we remember, so that we will always remember. Bill Northup perhaps captures it best when he said, "For those of us who served in World War II, we were all just a bunch of Americans who grew up together in Graniteville. Irish, Scotch, Italian, English. There was no question of nationality anymore." There are 3 soldiers who have passed on this past year: Harold Nicholson, Frank DiBenedetto, and George Sutcliffe. Mr. Nicholson entered the Air Force the day after he and his friend Ray Herder decided to hit the road by joining the military. He was assigned to Hickam Airfield in Hawaii and was there on December 7th, 1941. He had just come back from breakfast and was shooting pool with a friend Bill Davey from Providence, of all places, when the attack began. He first thought it was a Navy pilot drill, but after a few minutes he and his friend realized what was happening. He ran back to the barracks to help however he could, and then to the airplane hangars with the other soldiers to see if they could somehow help ward off the attack. The hangar was locked. He went back to the barracks, and someone asked him to go upstairs to get some helmets. Instead, another soldier went up before him, and that soldier was killed. Another soldier thought it might be a good idea to get out of the barracks and hide under the civilian automobiles, thinking the Japanese wouldn't bother hitting them. Harold said no. That soldier never made it across the parking lot. After waiting for what seemed like an eternity and doing the best they could to help, the attack stopped. Mr. Nicholson was spared and began to pick up the pieces. World War II had begun and lay ahead. He survived the war, married his high school sweetheart Muriel from Sunnydale, and raised 2 daughters. He shall be missed, but he shall never be forgotten. I'd like to now introduce David to speak about Mr. Benedetto.